每天练习英语听、说、练，与我们一起提升你的语言技能。完成后，在我们的应用程式里多加练习。免费，连结在下方。开始练习吧。
I love reading comic books on weekends. I love reading comic books on weekends.
我喜欢在周末阅读漫画书。
I love reading comic books on weekends. I love reading comic books on weekends. Comic books are fun and exciting. Comic books are fun and exciting.
漫画书很有趣又刺激。
Comic books are fun and exciting. Comic books are fun and exciting. Mia has a big collection of comics. Mia has a big collection of comics.
Mia 有一大堆漫画收藏。
Mia has a big collection of comics. Mia has a big collection of comics. Tom reads a new comic every day. Tom reads a new comic every day.
Tom 每天都会读一本新的漫画。
Tom reads a new comic every day. Tom reads a new comic every day. Superheroes are popular in comic books. Superheroes are popular in comic books.
超级英雄在漫画书中很受欢迎。
Superheroes are popular in comic books. Superheroes are popular in comic books. Anna draws her own comic stories. Anna draws her own comic stories.
Anna 画自己的漫画故事。
Anna draws her own comic stories. Anna draws her own comic stories. I bought a new comic from the store. I bought a new comic from the store.
我从商店买了一本新的漫画。
I bought a new comic from the store. I bought a new comic from the store. Jack likes comic books about space. Jack likes comic books about space.
Jack 喜欢关于太空的漫画书。
Jack likes comic books about space. Jack likes comic books about space. We talk about comics at lunch. We talk about comics at lunch.
我们午餐时会聊漫画。
We talk about comics at lunch. We talk about comics at lunch. Ben reads comics before bed. Ben reads comics before bed.
Ben 睡前会看漫画。
Ben reads comics before bed. Ben reads comics before bed. This comic has colorful pictures. This comic has colorful pictures.
这本漫画有彩色的图片。
This comic has colorful pictures. This comic has colorful pictures. Lucy writes reviews of comic books. Lucy writes reviews of comic books.
Lucy 写漫画书的评论。
Lucy writes reviews of comic books. Lucy writes reviews of comic books. I found a rare comic last week. I found a rare comic last week.
我上周找到了一本稀有的漫画。
I found a rare comic last week. I found a rare comic last week. My brother shares his comics with me. My brother shares his comics with me.
我哥哥会和我分享他的漫画。
My brother shares his comics with me. My brother shares his comics with me. Sarah likes comics with funny characters. Sarah likes comics with funny characters.
Sarah 喜欢有趣角色的漫画。
Sarah likes comics with funny characters. Sarah likes comics with funny characters. James wants to create his own comic. James wants to create his own comic.
James 想创作自己的漫画。
James wants to create his own comic. James wants to create his own comic. Emma goes to comic book conventions. Emma goes to comic book conventions.
Emma 会参加漫画书展。
Emma goes to comic book conventions. Emma goes to comic book conventions. We saw a comic book movie yesterday. We saw a comic book movie yesterday.
我们昨天看了一部改编自漫画的电影。
We saw a comic book movie yesterday. We saw a comic book movie yesterday. Nick dressed as a superhero for Halloween. Nick dressed as a superhero for Halloween.
Nick 万圣节打扮成超级英雄。
Nick dressed as a superhero for Halloween. Nick dressed as a superhero for Halloween. Leah reads comics online. Leah reads comics online.
Leah 在网路上看漫画。
Leah reads comics online. Leah reads comics online. This comic is about time travel. This comic is about time travel.
这本漫画是关于时光旅行的。
This comic is about time travel. This comic is about time travel. Comics can teach you new words. Comics can teach you new words.
漫画可以教你新单字。
Comics can teach you new words. Comics can teach you new words. I get comics from the library. I get comics from the library.
我从图书馆借漫画。
I get comics from the library. I get comics from the library. Liam draws superhero comics. Liam draws superhero comics.
Liam 画超级英雄漫画。
Liam draws superhero comics. Liam draws superhero comics. Sophie reads comics with her dad. Sophie reads comics with her dad.
Sophie 和她爸爸一起看漫画。
Sophie reads comics with her dad. Sophie reads comics with her dad. This comic has a great story. This comic has a great story.
这本漫画的故事很棒。
This comic has a great story. This comic has a great story. I read comics during my break. I read comics during my break.
我在休息时间看漫画。
I read comics during my break. I read comics during my break. Noah collects old comic books. Noah collects old comic books.
Noah 收藏旧漫画书。
Noah collects old comic books. Noah collects old comic books. We visited a comic book shop. We visited a comic book shop.
我们去了一家漫画书店。
We visited a comic book shop. We visited a comic book shop. Olivia likes fantasy comics. Olivia likes fantasy comics.
Olivia 喜欢奇幻漫画。
Olivia likes fantasy comics. Olivia likes fantasy comics. Ethan reads Japanese comics too. Ethan reads Japanese comics too.
Ethan 也会看日本漫画。
Ethan reads Japanese comics too. Ethan reads Japanese comics too. I enjoy comics with animals. I enjoy comics with animals.
我喜欢有动物的漫画。
I enjoy comics with animals. I enjoy comics with animals. Grace bought a comic about robots. Grace bought a comic about robots.
Grace 买了一本关于机器人的漫画。
Grace bought a comic about robots. Grace bought a comic about robots. Comic books come in many styles. Comic books come in many styles.
漫画书有很多不同的风格。
Comic books come in many styles. Comic books come in many styles. Zoe draws comics at school. Zoe draws comics at school.
Zoe 在学校画漫画。
Zoe draws comics at school. Zoe draws comics at school. I read comics on my tablet. I read comics on my tablet.
我用平板看漫画。
I read comics on my tablet. I read comics on my tablet. Daniel talks about comics with his friends. Daniel talks about comics with his friends.
Daniel 和朋友们聊漫画。
Daniel talks about comics with his friends. Daniel talks about comics with his friends. Chloe reads one comic every night. Chloe reads one comic every night.
Chloe 每晚看一本漫画。
Chloe reads one comic every night. Chloe reads one comic every night. This comic is very funny. This comic is very funny.
这本漫画非常有趣。
This comic is very funny. This comic is very funny. I like comics with mystery stories. I like comics with mystery stories.
我喜欢有悬疑故事的漫画。
I like comics with mystery stories. I like comics with mystery stories. Ava reads comics in English and Spanish. Ava reads comics in English and Spanish.
Ava 用英文和西班牙文看漫画。
Ava reads comics in English and Spanish. Ava reads comics in English and Spanish. Comic books help you learn new things. Comic books help you learn new things.
漫画书能帮你学到新知识。
Comic books help you learn new things. Comic books help you learn new things. Ryan wants to be a comic artist. Ryan wants to be a comic artist.
Ryan 想成为漫画家。
Ryan wants to be a comic artist. Ryan wants to be a comic artist. We watched a show based on a comic. We watched a show based on a comic.
我们看了一部改编自漫画的节目。
We watched a show based on a comic. We watched a show based on a comic. Isla made a comic for her art class. Isla made a comic for her art class.
Isla 为她的美术课画了一本漫画。
Isla made a comic for her art class. Isla made a comic for her art class. Lucas loves science fiction comics. Lucas loves science fiction comics.
Lucas 喜欢科幻漫画。
Lucas loves science fiction comics. Lucas loves science fiction comics. Lily enjoys comics with dragons. Lily enjoys comics with dragons.
Lily 喜欢有龙的漫画。
Lily enjoys comics with dragons. Lily enjoys comics with dragons. Comics can be short or long. Comics can be short or long.
漫画可以很短也可以很长。
Comics can be short or long. Comics can be short or long. I read comics on the weekend. I read comics on the weekend.
我周末会看漫画。
I read comics on the weekend. I read comics on the weekend. Jacob likes comics with action scenes. Jacob likes comics with action scenes.
Jacob 喜欢有动作场面的漫画。
Jacob likes comics with action scenes. Jacob likes comics with action scenes. Ella found a comic at the market. Ella found a comic at the market.
Ella 在市场找到了一本漫画。
Ella found a comic at the market. Ella found a comic at the market. Alex trades comics with his cousin. Alex trades comics with his cousin.
Alex 和他的表哥交换漫画。
Alex trades comics with his cousin. Alex trades comics with his cousin. Harper draws comics with her sister. Harper draws comics with her sister.
Harper 和他妹妹一起画漫画。
Harper draws comics with her sister. Harper draws comics with her sister. This comic is about a brave girl. This comic is about a brave girl.
这本漫画是关于一位勇敢的女孩。
This comic is about a brave girl. This comic is about a brave girl. Owen enjoys reading superhero comics. Owen enjoys reading superhero comics.
Owen 喜欢看超级英雄漫画。
Owen enjoys reading superhero comics. Owen enjoys reading superhero comics. Layla reads comics on her phone. Layla reads comics on her phone.
Layla 用手机看漫画。
Layla reads comics on her phone. Layla reads comics on her phone. Comics can be funny or serious. Comics can be funny or serious.
漫画可以很搞笑，也可以很严肃。
Comics can be funny or serious. Comics can be funny or serious. I bought comics at the fair. I bought comics at the fair.
我在市集买了漫画。
I bought comics at the fair. I bought comics at the fair. Aiden reads comics with his mom. Aiden reads comics with his mom.
Aiden 和他妈妈一起看漫画。
Aiden reads comics with his mom. Aiden reads comics with his mom. Nora likes comics with detectives. Nora likes comics with detectives.
Laura 喜欢有侦探的漫画。
Nora likes comics with detectives. Nora likes comics with detectives. This comic has a lot of pages. This comic has a lot of pages.
这本漫画有很多页。
This comic has a lot of pages. This comic has a lot of pages. I keep my comics in a box. I keep my comics in a box.
我把漫画放在一个盒子里。
I keep my comics in a box. I keep my comics in a box. Leo reads comics in the car. Leo reads comics in the car.
Leo 在车上看漫画。
Leo reads comics in the car. Leo reads comics in the car. Maya writes about comics in her blog. Maya writes about comics in her blog.
Maya 在她的部落格写漫画相关的文章。
Maya writes about comics in her blog. Maya writes about comics in her blog. Comic books are easy to carry. Comic books are easy to carry.
漫画书很容易携带。
Comic books are easy to carry. Comic books are easy to carry. Elijah shares comics with his classmates. Elijah shares comics with his classmates.
Elijah 和同学分享漫画。
Elijah shares comics with his classmates. Elijah shares comics with his classmates. Arya found a new comic series. Arya found a new comic series.
Arya 找到了一个新的漫画系列。
Arya found a new comic series. Arya found a new comic series. I read comics when I travel. I read comics when I travel.
我旅行时会看漫画。
I read comics when I travel. I read comics when I travel. Sebastian likes comics with robots. Sebastian likes comics with robots.
Sebastian 喜欢有机器人的漫画。
Sebastian likes comics with robots. Sebastian likes comics with robots. Stella draws comics about animals. Stella draws comics about animals.
Stella 画关于动物的漫画。
Stella draws comics about animals. Stella draws comics about animals. This comic is about a wizard. This comic is about a wizard.
这本漫画是关于一位巫师的。
This comic is about a wizard. This comic is about a wizard. I read comics to relax. I read comics to relax.
我看漫画来放松。
I read comics to relax. I read comics to relax. Violet showed me her favorite comic. Violet showed me her favorite comic.
Violet 给我看她最喜欢的漫画。
Violet showed me her favorite comic. Violet showed me her favorite comic. Julian buys comics every month. Julian buys comics every month.
Julian 每个月都会买漫画。
Julian buys comics every month. Julian buys comics every month. Hazel reads comics with her brother. Hazel reads comics with her brother.
Hazel 和她哥哥一起看漫画。
Hazel reads comics with her brother. Hazel reads comics with her brother. Comic books are full of adventure. Comic books are full of adventure.
漫画书充满冒险。
Comic books are full of adventure. Comic books are full of adventure. Dominic likes comics with pirates. Dominic likes comics with pirates.
Dominic 喜欢有海盗的漫画。
Dominic likes comics with pirates. Dominic likes comics with pirates. Aurora draws comics after school. Aurora draws comics after school.
Aurora 放学后画漫画。
Aurora draws comics after school. Aurora draws comics after school. This comic has amazing artwork. This comic has amazing artwork.
这本漫画的画风很惊人。
This comic has amazing artwork. This comic has amazing artwork. I enjoy comics with heroes and villains. I enjoy comics with heroes and villains.
我喜欢有英雄和反派的漫画。
I enjoy comics with heroes and villains. I enjoy comics with heroes and villains. Miles reads comics about dinosaurs. Miles reads comics about dinosaurs.
Miles 看关于恐龙的漫画。
Miles reads comics about dinosaurs. Miles reads comics about dinosaurs. Penelope loves romantic comics. Penelope loves romantic comics.
Penelope 喜欢浪漫漫画。
Penelope loves romantic comics. Penelope loves romantic comics. Comic books tell great stories. Comic books tell great stories.
漫画书讲述很棒的故事。
Comic books tell great stories. Comic books tell great stories. Xavier reads comics at the park. Xavier reads comics at the park.
Xavier 在公园看漫画。
Xavier reads comics at the park. Xavier reads comics at the park. Clara made her own comic book. Clara made her own comic book.
Clara 自己创作了一本漫画书。
Clara made her own comic book. Clara made her own comic book. Gianna reads comics with her cousin. Gianna reads comics with her cousin.
Gianna 和她的表哥一起看漫画。
Gianna reads comics with her cousin. Gianna reads comics with her cousin. Andrew collects superhero comics. Andrew collects superhero comics.
Andrew 收藏超级英雄漫画。
Andrew collects superhero comics. Andrew collects superhero comics. Naomi likes comics with princesses. Naomi likes comics with princesses.
Naomi 喜欢有公主的漫画。
Naomi likes comics with princesses. Naomi likes comics with princesses. Comic books are great gifts. Comic books are great gifts.
漫画书是很棒的礼物。
Comic books are great gifts. Comic books are great gifts. Eli reads comics on the bus. Eli reads comics on the bus.
Eli 在公车上看漫画。
Eli reads comics on the bus. Eli reads comics on the bus. Ruby enjoys comics with puzzles. Ruby enjoys comics with puzzles.
Ruby 喜欢有谜题的漫画。
Ruby enjoys comics with puzzles. Ruby enjoys comics with puzzles. Isaac reads comics with his grandpa. Isaac reads comics with his grandpa.
Isaac 和他的爷爷一起看漫画。
Isaac reads comics with his grandpa. Isaac reads comics with his grandpa. Alice draws comics every weekend. Alice draws comics every weekend.
Alice 每个周末都画漫画。
Alice draws comics every weekend. Alice draws comics every weekend.
感谢观看，订阅我们的频道并开启通知，及时获取新视频，持续你的英语学习之旅。